Hi everyone, aloha. For those who are just joining us, go ahead and kick back, relax, and we'll go ahead and get started here shortly. Aloha everyone, welcome. If you're just joining us, go ahead and hang out for just a moment. We'll get started shortly. Hi everyone, aloha and welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started here in just a couple minutes. All right, aloha everyone, and good afternoon or good evening, depending on your time zone. We appreciate you all taking time out of your day to go ahead and join us to learn more about choosing your major. We're so excited that to have some of our Manoa Academic Advising Center visiting us here today. Just wanted to go over a few reminders for you all. Just as a reminder, if you've been to these events before, you know that it is webinar style, where you all can see us. However, we cannot see you. If you guys have any questions throughout the presentation, please, by all means, go ahead and put them in the Q&A section that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. So definitely be sure to not be shy. Let us know if you have questions. Also, we will be posting this recording onto YouTube later. So definitely be sure if you want to rewatch it, you will have that opportunity to do so. And so I'm super excited. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Andrew and Eve, who will talk to you more about selecting your major.
Sorry, technical difficulties. Give me just a second.
No worries.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so thank you, Amber, for the introduction. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Warrior Wednesday with Eve and myself. As Amber mentioned, we're both academic advisors from the Manoa Advising Center. So just a little bit of background information about our office. We are home to the exploratory students at our campus. That is an official designation that you can have on your record. And what that essentially means is that you're in a classification in which maybe you haven't selected your major just yet. This could be for a number of different reasons, anywhere from maybe you just have too many options, maybe you just don't know what options are available, or maybe you're just not able to declare into your intended major just yet. Whatever that may be, fear not, you do have an academic advising office that you can directly get in contact with and schedule a meeting, talk about just sort of the logistics of the campus and any other inquiries that you may have. And the reason why it's important to know this is just because with how the campus is set up, it essentially operates in a type of like jurisdictions way based off of your intended major. But that being said, with our office, our main goal is to collaborate with all the different academic units that we have on campus and get you folks into a major that best suits your abilities, interests, and goals. But that being said, does anyone have any ideas as to how many majors that we might have on campus. Any guesses? You folks can kind of throw that into the chat. Give you a couple seconds for that.
We have 80, someone
80.
says, 90 to 100, 61, 50, 60,
Awesome.
75.
150. Okay. All right. So we actually have over 100 majors. And I would even argue to say an infinite amount of majors. And I'll explain as to why that is in just a second. But of these 100+ majors, they are divided up into academic units that we have on campus. And these academic units, we typically refer to them as colleges and schools. And underneath of them, they have a range of however many number of majors for each. Now, just a quick disclaimer before I continue with how we're going to describe all these different colleges and schools. We're kind of talking about these in terms of broad strokes, just so that it's easy to conceptualize the general structure for how these undergraduate programs are set up. There are definitely going to be exceptions to the rule. If you are interested or declared in any of these majors housed into one college or school, we do suggest meeting with an academic advisor, just so that then you can get some clarification as to how your course structure is going to look, because it will vary program to program. But that being said, let's go ahead and start with our first general group, which is going to be that top orange section, and that will include the College of Arts, Languages, and Letters, College of Social Sciences, School of Pacific and Asian Studies, and Hawaii Nu'akea School of Hawaiian Knowledge. Now, these are typically programs that we would refer to as flexible programs. And what that means is that they have a lot of elective credits in which you can theoretically do whatever it is that you want for courses, so long as you meet varying credit minimums, maximums, and completing your other requirements as is. I should have mentioned this earlier, but when it comes to an undergraduate degree, you can kind of think about it in terms of 3 distinct categories. You have your general education, which will be just about anything and everything that all students, regardless of their major, will have to do in some shape or form. And then after that, you have your major specific courses, which is going to be your concentration area. And last but not least, you have your elective sections. Now, depending on your major, it becomes sort of a give and take between the major requirements and the elective section. So for this first group in the orange, these programs will have a lot of elective credits. Now, moving on from there, we have our green section, and this is typically what we would refer to as sort of like professional degree programs. Here we have the Scheidler College of Business, College of Education, School of Architecture, Thompson School of Social Work and Public Health, School of Nursing and Dental Hygiene, and John A. Burns School of Medicine. And for these programs, typically they do have prerequisites established before you can officially declare into the program. And they will typically have somewhat of a set curriculum from start to finish for you to be able to follow and graduate in a timely manner. All right, next we have our red section, which is going to include the College of Natural Sciences, College of Engineering, College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources, and School of Ocean and Earth Sciences and Technology. Now, these programs tend to be STEM, yes, but these typically are programs that we would refer to as sequence majors or sequential majors. And what that essentially means is that when it comes to their course curriculum, they are sort of prerequisites upon prerequisites. They really build off of each other. And because of that, in the event that you have a misstep anywhere, it is possible to potentially set yourself back a semester, if not a full year. So if you do happen to be in any one of these areas, we do suggest just be wary about it. And last but not least, we have William Richardson School of Law. Now, this is sort of an oddball program because this is actually only a graduate school program. So for anyone who might be interested in law school, for example, this is something that you would do after completing an undergraduate degree in one of the other areas. But it is an academic unit that we have on campus, so we did want to draw some attention to that here today. Last but not least, though, right in the middle, we also have the Office of Undergraduate Education. And this is sort of a neutral party to all the different academic units that we have on campus. This is actually where the Manoa Advising Center resides, and also interdisciplinary studies. And so for this program, this is where we have the possibility for an infinite amount of majors. But interdisciplinary studies is a program that we have on campus that allows you to theoretically create just about any major that you want. Now, there are some caveats that students should be aware of before completing that process. It is somewhat of an arduous process, but if looking at all the different academic units, you feel that there's nothing that really resonates with you, know that interdisciplinary studies is an option as well. But having gone through the general structure of all the different advising units and how that is kind of situated, let's go ahead and dive into the real meat and potatoes of today's presentation, which is selecting a major. So, okay. So when you folks are trying to decide on a major, we always say that the best place to begin is with you. Normally, we suggest that you think about yourself and just sort of the things that you want into two distinct categories: external factors and internal factors. So external factors are, think of them as outside rewards based off of the decisions that you'll make for major selection or even career selection. These could be things like financial security, job security, and even major availability. Although with something like interdisciplinary studies, availability is somewhat of a moot point, but we still want to put that in there from time to time. But once you have your external factors all established, the next place to begin is the internal factors. And this is probably the more important of the two, I would say. This is definitely just highlighting what exactly are your personal interests and investment to this particular academic subject. Yes, you may select a major that has a high probability for financial and job security, but if it's something that you're not particularly interested in, you may not feel super motivated to attend class, do well on exams, and even in the career world, you may not feel a quality level of job satisfaction. And as a result, we do see some students that return back after a year or two in the job market and just feel that it really wasn't for them. So we always say, try to find something that kind of gets the best of both worlds. And then lastly, we also want to draw attention to time. Now, the fortunate thing is that all of the academic programs here at the Manoa campus are set up so that then you can graduate in 4 years, with some minor exceptions here or there. But typically, if you take roughly 15 credits per semester or about 30 credits per academic year, you should be set to graduate in 4 years. However, if, say, you start off in one program and then you want to switch in the future, depending on what you're switching from and to, this may impact your overall time frame for graduation. So for some programs, regardless of what you switched from, you're essentially going to be adding on a brand new set of 4 years. And so that may extend your time to 5, 6, 7, even 8 years. So just something to be wary about. For some students, maybe graduating early is super important. While some programs, it might be very easy to do so, others will keep you on a very strict time frame that you won't be able to accelerate your graduation time. So just some things to keep in mind. But once you sort of establish everything about yourself, what are your external and internal factors, the next thing is to just sort of test the waters, see what's out there. So for a lot of our programs, we do have intro courses that students can kind of dabble in, see what's out there. And the nice thing about essentially all of our intro courses is that they're a good crash course to figure out what exactly this program is going to be about in your 4 years. That's also going to be the first step to sort of networking within the field, getting in touch with a faculty member, learning a little bit more about what life will be like once you graduate. In addition to taking an intro course, we strongly recommend students look into organizations that we have on campus, or clubs, if you will. Most academic programs do have some type of student organization or interest area in which you can kind of start networking with peers. most of the times these organizations do collaborate with community members or alumni so that then you can kind of get a fresh perspective of what life will be like immediately after you graduate and what that grind might be like. And then, of course, we always recommend just talking with people. We already established talking with peers, but also talking with academic advisors. We can definitely assist you with figuring out what life will be like over the next 4 years or so. And then more often than not, that is always overlooked, faculty members. Faculty members are a great resource that we have on campus. These are experts in their field. They can let you know what the entire curriculum will be like, what the specializations are, and what the trajectory is in terms of career preparation and how that can best work for you. So just some things to keep in mind. Now, after all of this, if you still can't make up your mind for a major, fear not. So we do allow students to look into pursuing multiple programs. This can be anything from a double major, a concurrent degree, minors, or certificates. The only thing to keep in mind if you're going to do multiple programs like this is to consider what your options are. So if we're doing something like a double major or a concurrent degree, if you have two programs that are heavily sequential or they have a very strict set of course requirements that doesn't really have much flexibility there, it might be hard to do multiple programs like these and still graduate in 4 years. You may have to extend or potentially take summer school courses, so things like that. If that's the case, we highly recommend looking into minors or certificates. These are sort of like half programs. Normally, they'll require students to take about 5 courses that are 300 or 400 level in their respective fields. There may or may not be a prerequisite here or there. However, with minors and certificates, we don't have all minors and certificates available in the sense of for majors. So if there's a major, we may not necessarily have the minor certificate, is what I'm trying to say. Lastly, another thing you may want to consider is graduate school. When it comes to graduate school, your undergraduate and your graduate program don't necessarily need to be one-to-one aligned. You may have a change of heart as you near junior and senior year, but it's more feasible for you to just finish your undergraduate and switch into a different graduate program. This is a great way to sort of diversify and specialize your different skill sets for future employers as well. So just some things to consider if you still can't decide one major or the other. Now, some final resources that we always feel are helpful for students is utilizing your STAR accounts. By now, most of you should have access to STAR. This is going to be your main student hub when it comes to registration, but it's also going to be a good place for you to get a better feel for just sort of temperature checks and seeing where you're at. You may also want to utilize our catalog resource, which is essentially your student handbook. It'll have everything you need to know in terms of policies and procedures at the campus, course descriptions, as well as contact information for the varying offices and services that we have here. Last but not least, student support services just in general. This will include academic advising, of course, but also the Career Center, which most students, when they think about career preparation and college, they kind of think about it in terms of, oh, I'll just do that at the end, junior, senior year. But truth be told, when it comes to career preparation, you actually want to try to get a jump on that as early as possible. So even incoming freshmen, incoming transfer students, it's always great to talk to the Career Center as well. And then we have a large range of other student support services available at the campus that you can definitely utilize as well. But that pretty much wraps up my quick introductory into choosing a major at the campus. At this point, we want to open up the floor for any questions, comments, concerns that you folks may have. I think the Q&A is active at the moment.
Yeah, Andrew, so we have some questions. So could you talk about what students need to do if they need to change their major? Kind of what would be the first step in that process?
Got it. Okay. So when it comes to changing your major, first and foremost, identify what exactly it is that you want to change to, or if you're unsure, there, of course, is the Manoa Advising Center. We'd be more than happy to assist with that. But once you've established what major you want to try to switch to, the process typically is pretty simple. You can just contact that respective advising unit, and normally they'll have a form for you to fill out. Depending on which program, you may have to talk with a specific department advisor as well, get some signatures there. Some programs will require an application process or like very specific deadlines that you have to submit a declaration by. So just keep that in mind as well. But I think most programs on campus are going to be just sort of open, so you can technically declare whenever. Some other programs, you may have to wait for the next academic semester, so fall or spring typically.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. And someone is asking, is it possible to kind of double major, like let's say with something like, or excuse me, do like a major and minor with something kind of more sciencey, like marine biology, and then something like language? Is that possible?
Most definitely. So the nice thing about most of the majors when it comes to their general education is we do have language naturally integrated into the curriculum. And so normally you'll have to go up to what we refer to as Tool 2, but this is essentially like level 4 in a language, which is typically right when a minor in a language or certificate in a language really starts to kick off. So it'll align pretty nicely at first. However, doing something like a science, that is one of our more sequential programs, and they don't have too much room for electives. So you may have to do a little bit of extra work in a fall or spring semester. So for example, like instead of taking 15 credits, maybe you're looking at 18 credits for a couple of semesters. And of course, looking at summer school. The nice thing about summer is that it is broken up into two sort of like half sessions, which would be about 6 weeks each. So.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. And then the next kind of question we're getting, and I'm not sure, this might be a question for our admissions folks as well. Some students are wondering when they applied, they checked a certain major, but now they're thinking of maybe switching. Would you suggest going ahead and kind of contacting that department to file the paperwork to change the major? Or I don't know if admissions, if they're still able to switch the major.
So with admissions, you'll be able to change your major up until May 1st. If that's something you're interested in doing, I'll go ahead and put the email for admissions in the chat. And so you would just want to email the admissions office and say, hi, my name is, and then put in your UHID number, state what your original major is and which major you want to change to, and our office can go ahead and do that. Anytime after May 1st, you'll want to make sure to do it directly with the academic advisors in the fall.
Thank you so much. Okay, and let's see here. So Andrew, lots of questions about double majoring and maybe doing minors. Is it pretty feasible? I know you were talking about it earlier. Is it pretty feasible for students to do double majors, and does it really cost them any more money to do that?
Good question. So it really will depend on the combination of programs that you have. So if you're looking at two programs that are relatively flexible, so they have a lot of elective credits, essentially what that means is that if you're going to do a double major, you're sort of specifying what you're doing for these electives, if that makes sense. So you're not really losing time or adding on any new requirements. You're just designating what you're going to be doing for these electives, if that makes sense. So under most circumstances, if your programs are very flexible, you really don't lose any time at all, and you'll still be able to graduate in 4 years, no problem. And depending on the combination of things, it is possible to do a double major and a minor and certificate all at the same time. If there isn't as much flexibility there with the curriculum that may force you to extend your time a semester or two. And then, of course, considering summer as well. And so in these cases, yes, it would cost a little bit more money. If you folks feel up to the task and taking on somewhat of a heavier workload, so instead of staying at the 15, going to 18 credits, that's definitely a possible cheaper alternative. The reason for that is because we operate in sort of like a flat fee rate. Once you hit 12 credits, which is full-time status for us, anything after that will essentially cost the same. So 12 credits, 15 credits, 18 credits, it all is still going to cost the same. And so that's one way to sort of reduce your overall cost and get the most bang for your buck.
Okay, thank you so much. And we have a question. I'm not sure if you know about this, Andrew, but talking about someone's asking, are there different living spaces for different majors? Or are the two unrelated? I personally don't know. I think sometimes there are different floors or something like that. If you know anything about that, Andrew.
I don't know the exact specifics. I think, especially for incoming freshmen, there are some designated floors or sort of like a cohort program, but that might be a question better suited for our residential life unit directly.
Okay, great. I will give them that info. Okay, one question I know you're going to be able to answer for sure is, what does exploratory business mean?
Great question. So for exploratory business, or just exploratory in general, we have academic pathways within exploratory, and so these are sort of like general interest areas you may have. You may not necessarily know exactly what you want to go into, but something business related, exploratory business. We also have an exploratory health sciences, exploratory arts and humanities, exploratory STEM, exploratory social sciences. And so these are all just sort of general interest areas. For something like exploratory business, more often than not, students are interested in something with the Scheidler College of Business. This will include accounting, marketing management, entrepreneurship, management information systems, human resource management, and international business. I think I got everything. So these are probably the most common ones that students will try and go into, but we also have programs like travel industry management or economics, which technically are housed in different locations, although travel industry management did just get relocated under Scheidler College of Business. So for something like economics, let's say, that is technically a major under the College of Social Sciences. So think of that particular classification as just sort of an interest area. And when it comes to the Scheidler programs, these are programs that do require admission requirements. So in the meantime, you'll be housed with us and we can kind of get you situated and let you know everything you need to know about completing those requirements and when to declare or submit the paperwork to declare.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And let's see here. Some questions about, someone asked, would they be able to look at different careers to help them decide what to major in? What would you kind of suggest for someone like that?
Most definitely. That's actually a great way to go about major selection. If you don't really know what major you have in mind, you can look at some career options you're interested in and work backwards from there. With our Career Center, we utilize a tool called Focus 2, which is a self-assessment tool, but it also has information about all the different majors that we have on campus and the types of careers they lead into, but also the reverse, which is specific careers and different majors that lead into those careers. So that's definitely a good way to approach it as well. Another thing to keep in mind is if you don't necessarily have like a specific career set in mind, and thereby not really have a specific major in mind. If you have a very specific skill set or sort of a work environment that you want to have, these are also good indicators for you when it comes to major selection as well.
Okay, awesome. And another question we have is, when do I have to declare a major?
This is somewhat of a complicated question, to be perfectly honest. Technically speaking, there is currently no time frame for when you need to declare. That being said, ideally, we recommend for most programs by the end of your sophomore year. The reason for this is because most programs are set up in a 2x2 framework where your first 2 years, you're pretty much just focusing on general education, maybe some prerequisites here or there. And then your last 2 years, that's really when you should be focusing on your specific concentration area. But this is all under the assumption that you're still working off of a 4-year plan. If your time is fluctuating, that this suggested time frame is also going to change as well. And also with some majors, they really want you to hit the ground running. You kind of need to know as soon as possible, ideally before you even start your first semester. But these are geared more towards the programs that are going to be either in our sequential section or in the professional degree section.
Right. Someone is asking, I know you're talking about declaring majors and everything. How difficult is it maybe to switch your major once, like let's say you're a year in and you've decided that's not what you want to do anymore? How difficult is that?
Not too difficult. Once again, just kind of depending on what majors you're working off of, both switching from and switching to. There are some restrictions that may apply that, you can only switch at a certain time in the semester. But more often than not, you're able to just contact whoever it is that you want to switch into and fill out their paperwork. But like I said, there are definitely some exceptions to that rule. Now, if you tested the waters on certain programs for a semester, for a year, and then you realize, oh, this is really not for you. Most of our programs, if you switch into them, you don't lose any time at all. But once again, if it's something that is going to be a little bit more structured, you may be adding on additional time from that point on. So.
Okay. And does being in the honors program maybe influence at all kind of what majors you can do or change anything as far as like maybe minors or interdisciplinary studies, things like that?
Not to my knowledge, no. Our honors program is geared towards research preparation. So definitely it's a great program if any of you are interested in potentially going into graduate school. The honors program allows you to conduct your own set of research with the assistance of a faculty member. And so this is sort of a like an extracurricular project you would do in addition to all of your coursework. I do believe that they have a requirement where every semester you have to take an honors course, but those are typically tied to some gen ed courses. So you might see some sections where it's like like English 100, and then there's English 100A, which is for honors students. So I believe it's so long as you register for one honors course per semester, you're still enrolled in honors. Although, correct me if I'm wrong about that, Eve.
No, you are totally right about that. So, all right. Next question we have is study abroad. So does like your major and minor really impact going on study abroad potentially?
Well, I think you might be better suited for this one.
Okay. So yeah, in short, it does not necessarily impact that. I think some of the majors that have the most specific requirements, like nursing, for example, has a specific um, program that you can take courses in Dublin, Ireland. And so sometimes there are study abroad programs that are lended to certain majors more. So you'll just kind of want to work out that plan ahead of time. But it definitely is possible to study abroad. There's fall, spring, and summer options. So definitely take a look at that. Let's see here. We have some kind of more major specific questions. Um, what would you suggest as far as resources, maybe Andrew, to learning more about what different majors are offer? So, for example, someone's interested in communication and marketing and the differences. What kind of resources would you suggest to help them investigate more?
Mhm. So definitely utilizing our services, Mano Advising Center. We are, for the most part, a neutral party. We like to sort of bridge programs together and kind of compare and contrast different interest areas and see how that may impact your overall time frame here at the university. If you're looking at more beyond your time at the institution, or even more specifics about course content, we would recommend actually just speaking directly to faculty members. All of our faculty members are more than willing to chat with students if they're interested in their programs. They're a slew of faculty members, in addition to their specified academic advisor that ideally is going to be the first person you talk to, but there's also department chairs, undergraduate chairs, and just about any instructor is more than willing to provide some clarity about all these different programs.
Great. And someone's asking, in terms of doing like a double major or minor, how soon do you have to make that decision?
That once again will kind of depend on the combination of programs you're looking at. In terms of a double major, that let's start there. That's probably going to be the more complicated of the two. That's why. So there's on our campus, they're sort of used interchangeably, but there are key differences across the board with a double major and a concurrent degree, and then multiple majors, which is kind of including both of those. A double major is pursuing two academic programs housed under the same academic unit, like a specific college or specific school. A concurrent degree, on the other hand, is pursuing academic programs from separate colleges and schools. So, for example, someone might have mentioned like communications and marketing. So this would be referred to as a concurrent degree, while a double major might be like marketing and finance, for example. The reason why this is important to know is with a concurrent degree, because they're from different academic units, sometimes there are additional requirements at play. So I believe with the College of Business, if you're going to do a concurrent degree, you actually need to have a higher GPA minimum of, I believe, like a 3.2 to 2.5 or so, to be able to even pursue that as an option. However, if you're going to do like a double major, all housed together under the same academic unit, normally these restrictions don't necessarily apply. And if you're going to do the concurrent degrees, it is possible where both academic units have very specific additional requirements that you have to do to even be considered for a concurrent degree. So if you're somewhat interested in it, I would suggest just trying to touch base with each academic unit as soon as you can, just so you can kind of get a better idea as to what you can expect, and just sort of the time frame for everything. But I've seen students declare multiple programs their junior, even their senior year at times. When it comes to minors and certificates, those are a lot more flexible because it's only about 5 mandated courses. maybe a prerequisite here or there. Theoretically, you can knock out a full minor at time, or depending on the minor, you can knock out a full minor in a single semester even. Although it does help to declare into these things, or at least touch base with the units as soon as you can, just so that then you get added to their list if you're not able to declare right away. And being added to the list, they can notify you of a range of different opportunities out there. So anything from internships, scholarships, even if you're not like a full major and just like a minor or certificate, you potentially can still have access to all of these different resources for the individual programs. So
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, let's see here. Someone's asking a question about how do we know how to choose between a bachelor's of arts and a bachelor's of science, if that's available.
great question. So when it comes to degrees on campus, we have a huge range of different degrees. So bachelor's of arts, bachelor's of science, bachelor's of education, music, fine arts, business administration, so on and so forth. You can kind of think of it in most cases as a bachelor's of arts being the more flexible option of the two, right? Yes, you have your specific concentration area, your general education, but maybe with the bachelor's of arts, you still have some elective credits that you're able to sort of diversify either within the department or just across the campus in general. However, if you're looking at one of the other degree options, like a bachelor's of science, this is where you start to specialize a little bit more. It's hard to say for sure which one would be better for you. It really just depends on what your end goal is once you graduate. Sometimes this can play a factor for graduate school. That's why. So, if you're interested in going to graduate school, they may suggest going with a bachelor's of science because the curriculum does slightly change and there is a little bit more of a foundation in terms of research preparation, which is a key component for graduate school in general. Some graduate programs, though, they honestly do not care whether it's a bachelor's of arts, bachelor's of science, just so long as you have this very solid foundation. So hard to say for sure. I would actually refer you to the individual departments for that, just so to kind of get their clarity.
Okay, great. And someone's asking, you were saying with interdisciplinary studies, it's kind of like making your own major. Is there a possibility with that with a minor?
Not with the minor, to my knowledge. You could look into just creating an a full interdisciplinary studies major for that. Although with the course load, that may be difficult to do. To my knowledge, no. Doing an interdisciplinary minor doesn't exist at this campus yet.
Okay, great. And someone is asking, how many minors can you have, or would you recommend?
I don't believe there are limits actually in terms of how many minors and certificates, as far as I know. As for how many would be ideal, that honestly is going to be entirely up to you. What I usually suggest to students is think about minors and certificates as like different skill sets. And so if you for like a type of career moving forward, so if you can sort of justify this particular skill set, it's always great to have that minor or certificate, just so that then it can show future employers how you can utilize all these different things for a future profession.
Okay, great. And I know you were kind of talking about it earlier as far as like declaring a major timeline, but someone's asking, what is the latest that you would need to declare a major?
That I believe it It kind of depends on when you need to submit the goldenrod form. So I haven't mentioned this yet, but the goldenrod form is sort of like a final check that you would do before you graduate. And this needs to be checked off by both your specific concentration department as well as your overall academic unit. So I think bare minimum, it's like semester, 2 semesters prior to graduation, although some academic units are not super strict on this rule. I ideally though try to declare sooner rather than later, I would say.
Okay. Let's see here. Let me just see if I got these different questions. I'm going to check in the chat as well. Some people asked, I guess, I think that was answered though. Yeah, does anyone have any other questions? I think one popped up. Let's see here. Is a minor the same thing as taking an emphasis in something?
Not necessarily. So taking an emphasis on something is sort of like designating major electives. So for some major departments, they have internal electives, as we like to call them. So it's you can do whatever you want for these categories. It just needs to be from our department or approved departments. And so if you don't have an emphasis, you can kind of just choose whatever you want, but if you do want to choose something very specific in this field, then you can go ahead and do that. So in terms of like coursework, you're still kind of doing the same thing, or you're not really adding on anything with an emphasis. With a minor, you are potentially adding on more courses or designating additional electives, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Does that make sense? If that didn't, please let me know. I'll try to clarify it further.
Yes. Someone is asking, will you be offering an online summer program for people to explore different majors before committing to one?
Great question. Yes, so actually our office just got approved for a UNIV 140 course, which is meant to be a transition course, sort of a UH Manoa College 101, but we do try to highlight different career and exploration and major exploration things that students may need to know before they start their first semester here.
Okay, thank you. And then another question kind of similar to that, asking about the first year programs. So could you share like what are the first year programs available to incoming students?
So the first year program, it has changed quite a bit in this year or so, year and a half. So I might not have the most up-to-date information on that, but they were built primarily for like a cohort system with classes. So your first semester, like this upcoming fall semester, let's say, you would have a sort of like a similar intro college 101 student 101 type of course, but then you would also be in the same about 4 to 5 additional classes with everyone from that intro college 101 course. And so that way, you have this kind of solid group you can always kind of refer back to, this community, if you will. And that used to impact registration at times. But I think over this past year, they've removed that, although they do have a sort of like freshman book club assignment though, to my knowledge, but my knowledge on first year programs is a little bit shaky at the moment.
Yeah, no, totally. I think you got it, Andrew. And I think for everyone here as well. Obviously with the pandemic, we've all had to adapt different things. And I think first year program was kind of adapting what they were doing too. So yeah. All right. So the class that you were talking about, the UNIV 140, someone is asking, how do they sign up for that?
Great question. So for incoming freshmen, technically your first semester is not until the fall. And so if any of you are interested in joining us for the UNIV 140, you can go ahead and contact our outreach program. They are in charge of just summer in general. How we handle summer school here is a little bit different. It's somewhat separate from the main campus in a way. So you do have to contact them to be admitted into the summer session. And then after that, you can kind of pick and choose what courses you want. Now, I'll say this with the UNIV 140 course, it is still meant to be primarily for exploratory students. However, we're still in the midst of sort of fleshing things out. So if any student is interested, please by all means feel free to contact us at our email address. So that is macadv@hawaii.edu, and we've been more than happy to talk to you a little bit deeper about that UNIV 140 course.
Okay, great. Let's see here. Someone's asking, what about creative writing and film production? Is there anything kind of related to that with the majors?
Yes. So we have two, I would say, that are very specific towards like kind of film production. So there is the creative media major, which focuses on traditional filmmaking techniques, from digital cinema to critical studies and even animation. With the animation track, though, they do have additional requirements before you can declare into that. I believe you have to generate a portfolio of some kind. But that is geared more towards traditional filmmaking, or like, how should I say, on-set filmmaking. So being on a movie set, TV set, anything like that, and the types of skills and content that they'll go through it is kind of a huge list. So anything from pre-production, main filming, and post-production as well. There's also a program under communications, which one of their emphasis or concentration areas that is specific, or it's called media arts, and I believe it's geared a little bit more towards like single shot camera documentary style filmmaking, but in either case, I mean, depending on what you're looking to do, you can still utilize these as more of sort of like technical programs where they'll provide you with a skill set for filmmaking in general, and then once you graduate, how you utilize that'll range. Other programs out there, or other academic programs, may have some classes geared towards these things and like how to sort of develop multimedia with this specific concentration area or academic major. But creative media and communications are probably going to be your best bet in terms of some type of film production, I would say.
Okay, great. And then this question, I know, Andrew, like we probably don't know how to answer this fully, but does the school have plans as far as like what the fall 2021 semester will look like?
So at the moment, we don't really know. The intention is to have some more hybrid programs. So, some days students will be in person, although with a smaller group, and then some days you're just kind of doing a virtual check-in or asynchronous type of class. So I think we will see more hybrid courses, but I do feel that a majority of courses will still be online in some shape or another. We won't really know until March, was it 23rd, 24th? That's when we're expecting the course availability to be posted. So we can see the different delivery methods for that as well. But in terms of announcements from upper administration, I don't believe anything has come out just yet.
Right. Yes. Just like all of you, we are anxious to see people again and get to some kind of normalcy, but we also have to be safe and follow the guidelines. So fingers crossed. Does anyone have other questions? I know we're kind of getting low on time. Let's see here. Someone is asking about kind of nursing and medical school.
Mhm.
So if you could kind of maybe share like what kind of things do people need to do to go to medical school?
So to my knowledge, when it comes to medical school, they are actually relatively flexible in terms of your major. However, there are prerequisites that you need to complete for medical school. So long as you incorporate those prerequisites, you should still be able to apply. However, I'm by no means an expert in this particular category. We do have a pre-health, pre-law advising center that you folks can reach out to, and they'll sort of similar like us. They doesn't matter what your major is. If you're interested in med school or even law school, they can assist you there as well.
Okay. And let's see here. I'm just trying to look at these different questions. Where could people find information about kind of your general education requirements?
So if you're looking to just kind of plainly see what your requirements are, you can actually log into your Star account and it'll lay out everything for you. However, it doesn't provide a great description as to what each category is. You may want to utilize our catalog, which is the student handbook, and that'll provide you an in-depth description for each general education requirement. Now, having said that, depending on what your major is, sometimes there are some specified courses when it comes to your general education. So do double check with your major, or if you're on the fence about a couple majors, just check in with an advisor of some kind, and then they can let you know just sort of where there might be some overlap or where you might need to double up on certain requirements to sort of stay neutral between multiple programs.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Someone, I think you kind of answered this before, but if somebody wants to double major in like very different subjects, like let's say like a science, like engineering and like a social science, how difficult might that be?
I think with that, you may want to try to budget some additional time, whether it's a semester or even a full year, and then maybe even anything with summer. With a program like engineering specifically, their curriculum is pretty intensive and it's very hands-on, and they only offer certain courses in a fall or spring. So if it's engineering and anything else, you always want to prioritize engineering first. But with that, it may not leave too much room for some of these other programs. There may be a little bit more flexibility nowadays with a lot of these courses being online, but with something like engineering, I would say it can be a bit of a challenge.
Okay. Let's see here. How do you log into your Star account? Someone's asking.
So that'll be the same login for your UH email address. Pretty much that UH email address login is going to be used for any type of login for UH Manoa. So whether it's for Star, Star Balance, if any of you are familiar with that, that's our online appointment scheduling system. So you can utilize that as well with the same password. We have our sort of online teaching format, or a classroom sort of format, which is referred to as Laulima, same login, just with your UH email address and password.
All right, let's see here. People are asking about applying to certain majors, so like nursing, dental hygiene. How do students do that?
So with nursing and dental hygiene, they have a separate application process and a full application process. So it's not just like a declaration form. Um, I would suggest contacting those departments specifically. Some of those, or for both of those programs, actually, they are some of our more competitive programs, just because there are very limited seats, and they're also some of the programs that really want you to hit the ground running when it comes to your course curriculum, even in your freshman year.
Mhm. And then a question we have is about placement exams. So when do they happen usually before fall?
That will vary placement exam to placement exam. So typically we have placement exams for language courses. So if you have experience in a language, any language really, there's a good chance we have a placement test or a way for you to potentially test out of that language requirement altogether. Those are handled directly with the individual departments or whoever is going to be testing you. So you would just email them and they'll be able to set something up for you before the fall semester begins. The chemistry placement test, that is actually all handled online. If you go to the chem department website, they will list out the instructions on how to add the course or the placement tests online through Laulima. And then there are some practice placement exams that you can take. I do believe that they have some time where they lock the placement test, so students can't take it anymore. But that's typically when like the semester is about to begin. For the math placement tests, that is currently offered through a third party. But you can find that information on the math department's website and then just schedule it through them that way. Although on occasions, they will offer math placement exams through the department itself. It used to be all in person. That's why when it was offered by the math department, but on occasions now they will offer their own online math placement tests. So.
Okay, and I think we're pretty much at time. So if we weren't able to get to your questions, please feel free to email us, but pass it back over to Amber.
Hey, thank you both, Andrew and Eve. We appreciate all of your help. I was like, I personally myself definitely learned a lot as well. So I want to say, of course, thank you guys so much for joining us here today. For students, also thank you guys for stopping by to learn more about choosing your major and about academic advising. Yeah, definitely. If you guys have more questions, like Eve was saying, be sure to go ahead and let us know. You can, of course, contact admissions or your academic advisor, or if you have questions for student housing. All of those websites are listed here on the slide. We're also going to go ahead and send out a survey afterwards. So definitely be sure to go ahead and fill that out. We'll also include a link to the YouTube recording of this webinar. Coming up on March 17th, we do have a Q&A on the honors program. So definitely be sure to look out for that. And also coming up on March 24th, we will have a virtual campus tour. If you have more additional questions about the ACE programs or about just academic advising in general, we will be having a session on April 14th next month as well about getting you prepped to select those classes at the end of May for those who are going to be attending in the fall. I want to say thank you all again so much. We really appreciate it. And we hope you guys have a wonderful day and see you all next time. Aloha.